of the Channel Leadership Network. I'm Jackie Rives, your community leader, and welcome to another Woman of the Week. This week, joining me is Kavita May, Senior Vice President of GTDC, and also one of our Women of the Channel Advisory Board members. Hi, Kavita. So grateful that you agreed to allow us to get to know you a little bit better this week.
My pleasure, Jackie. Always flattering to get invited to these things. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive into those icebreaker questions and get to know you a little bit better. Where do you live and where did you grow up, if that's different?
Yes, so I live in Odessa, which is a suburb of Tampa, Florida, in a little bubble of suburbia. I've lived here for, I want to say maybe 30 years, but I actually had a very interesting childhood. I was born in Bloomington, Indiana. My father was a PhD candidate there. So my mom was there. I was born there. And then at the age of 4, we moved to Brazil. And
Oh,
I lived
wow.
there for 13 years, and then we moved back to the States. So kind of jumped around a little bit.
Yeah, that is really cool though to
Yeah,
experience that as you were growing up. Very cool.
it was.
What is a little known fact about you that you don't mind sharing with our community?
Of course, it's a pretty benign thing, but as part of that growing up piece of jumping around a little bit, both my parents are from India. When I was in the States, of course, when I was born here, I spoke English fluently, but then we went to India for about 6 weeks because my dad was trying to figure out, okay, what future do I want? Do I want to live in India? Where's my career opportunity? So we lived there for a good 6 weeks. And none of my cousins or family spoke English. So here I am
Oh,
trying to
wow.
speak English with them, and nobody spoke any English. So anyway, I ended up struggling with that. And when my parents decided to move to Brazil, my dad says that as soon as we landed in Sao Paulo, I started speaking Hindi fluently. And he said, I cannot believe it. Well, long story short, at the age of 5, I was speaking Portuguese, Hindi, and English, and I kind of retained that for my entire life. So yeah, it was a funny little story there. So I guess that's the one thing.
Very interesting. I love that. I've always wished that I could, maybe that I tried a little bit harder in school and could speak fluent French now after 5 years, but I'm always amazed by languages and how people can speak multiple ones. So very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, and I don't think it's ever too late for you to try. And I then, taught myself Spanish and French on top of that. So you can, once you get that base, I say you should give it a try, Jackie. Give it a try.
I love it. Okay, well, if you're trying French, maybe I can practice with you and get
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
All right, love it. All right, so tell me a little bit about your career path and how you reached this amazing position with GTDC.
Well, yeah, it's a trajectory maybe very similar to a lot of women in tech, which is you never really know that you wanted to be in technology. It kind of finds you, or you stumble into it just completely by luck. I got my degree in international relations. I thought I was going to work for the State Department. I thought that with my language skills, I was going to do something similar to that. And then, of course, after my master's, the student loan bills started coming in. And I
Mhm.
decided, you know what? I think I need a job. I need something to pay the bills. And my friend suggested I apply at this company that was emerging and doing really well called Tech Data. Some of you guys may know. It was right here in my backyard in Clearwater. And applied for the job, got a sales job. I had never had a sales job in tech. I knew nothing about tech whatsoever. I knew what a hard drive was, and that was about it. And at that time, the company was really blowing up. They had about 1,000 salespeople at that point in time, and it was really a very exciting time for technology as a whole, a very exciting time for distribution. And I kind of learned my way there and just spent about 5 years. And then the CEO of Tech Data at the time, Steve Raymond, had helped found the GTDC in 1998 and kind of tapped the SVP at Tech Data at the time, Tim Curran, and said, hey, I think you could lead this thing. We're looking for a leader. And I know that Kavita just had a baby and she might be looking for something more flexible. So why don't you tag her along? So that was about 22 years ago. So here I am, with the GTDC. Really, we started with about 6 different companies. Now we're at 22 and we're global in nature. So it's been a lovely, lovely, lovely trip with the organization.
That is amazing. I always love hearing people's career paths because they're all so very different. And I always find it interesting when we get to learn more about what that looked like
Yeah.
for each of our members. What is something that you've learned that you wish maybe you knew earlier in your career?
Yeah, that's a really, I like that question a lot. I think
Mhm.
that, when I first started, I was just so busy trying to learn the ropes of the organization, and it was a very big one. But what I maybe, a few months into it, I started really paying attention to things like earnings calls and things like acquisitions and learning the financial piece of whatever company you work for, whether it's public, whether it's
Mhm.
private. Really pay attention to that. I also very quickly learned that the more certifications that I had, the more lunch and learns I went to, the more experiences and education I took advantage of, especially when it's something that the company's extending to you. Don't hesitate, even if you don't know anything about it. If you're not a techie by nature, if you're not a configurator, it doesn't really matter. You will be always grateful for really padding your knowledge base and your binder full of certifications. I really have never regretted doing that. So I would see those things. And then the other thing is always, the third thing I would say is maintain a healthy network from the very beginning. Get to know your teammates, get to know the people that are outside your team, get to know folks that are in different departments from yourself. So, sometimes it's very easy to stay in a bubble of your department
Mhm.
and just interact with those same folks. Reach out to the customer service folks, the credit folks, whoever, outside salespeople, and learn from them and chat with them and have a cup of coffee with them. Because the more you understand about how different businesses work and how different roles work, the more marketable are you going to be. And I think the more self-assured you're going to be to try to go for those other jobs that you traditionally would not, or other roles you would traditionally not. And I think having a mastery over a lot of things is always a great payout for you professionally and personally. It builds a self-confidence.
Yeah, I mean, all of those points you touched on are great, great advice. The only thing I could even possibly even add to it, and I feel like you probably already covered it, is just I would say younger in my career, that's how I would get confidence is start talking to the other teams and trying to learn a little bit about what they do because that helps us for me at the time it was managing projects, so it helped me manage projects better knowing how like one thing was affecting another thing. And I kind of snickered when you said like it's okay if you're not a techie. Like
Yeah.
I remember going to CMNA training, which is Cisco's Meraki training, and I was in over my head, but like just going through that course and then having the engineers there who were like helping me along with it, I learned so much from that.
Yeah.
One, that I never wanted to do networks and run cable and all that, but two, just learning how the gear worked together and the need that we were supplying for our customers. So I love
Exactly.
great
Exactly.
advice.
Yeah.
Well, we have a little bit of time left, and
Mhm.
I'm going to ask you one of my favorite questions because I love hearing how other people do this well. What are some best practices you use to manage your time?
Oh, great question. I love that question. And everybody deals with it a little bit differently. I remember when I first took on this job because it is completely remote. So I've been doing remote for 22 years. And the adjustment of going from an office job to a virtual environment or a remote environment was very difficult for me. It took me a while. This was the days of Blackberries, and I was tied to my Blackberry, and I would check emails at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and I would check emails as soon as I rolled out of bed or even before I rolled out of bed. And my husband very gently said, you have to have a physical boundary in your mind from office space to home space. He said, practice yourself that until you open that office door to your office, that you're not on office
Mm,
hours. And when you close that office door, you don't open it back up and you put that BlackBerry down. Those was such wonderful advice, and I really took it to heart. So that is something I continue with. I have blocks of time in my life for everything, and I adhere to them religiously, because otherwise it's so easy from home for you to think about, oh, I need to do this for the kids, or I forgot I need to call the doctor's appointment, or I need to do this. And I think that when you block all of those things off, you don't feel overwhelmed. So that's the one thing I would say. The second thing is, and I think even more importantly, is know who your team is. And when you're in a leadership role, it's very easy for you to try to take ownership of everything. But once
Mm.
you build a trust with your team and you know what everyone's strengths are, delegating and being able to say and ask for help and tasking based on folks' skill set is very important, because not only then do you build a confidence in your team, but then your team also appreciates the vote of confidence you're putting in them. And I think that that builds a lot of loyalty within the team and a lot of team worship. So I would say that that is another really big thing that I learned as I built a team around me.
Oh, such great advice. I love that. Thank you so much, Kavita, for joining me today and allowing us to celebrate you as our Woman of the Week.
Well, I appreciate it, Jackie. Thank you so much. Always an honor, and I'm always happy to participate in any way.
I love it. All right, community members, be sure to comment, continue the conversation. Please do share your tips, tricks, and insights. This is how we grow together. So until next time, have an amazing week.
Thank you.